ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनि नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. So I'd like to welcome everybody back. So thank you for joining this session on the Srimad Bhagavad, the crest jewel of all Vedic literatures. We are discussing the first canto. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagavad essentially is focused or called or given the topic of creation, Sarga Visarga. First and second canto cover Sarga and Visarga. First primary creation and secondary creation. So we are currently on the first canto and we'll be discussing chapter 14 today. Chapter 14 of the first canto of the Bhagavad is entitled The Disappearance of Lord Krishna. Now for living entities like us, the terminology used is birth and death. But when it comes to the Lord, or when it comes to the eternal associates of the Lord who come down, avatar. Avatar means those who come down. Down from where? Down from the spiritual realm. The right technical way to refer to them coming down to earth is not to use the term birth and death, because birth and death are results of material karma. The great souls recommend the use of the terminology of appearance and disappearance. When they are born, we say that they appeared, because that is the truth. And they are not born. The janma is because of karma. That is why we are born. But for the great souls and the Lord, the pure devotees and the Lord, they are not born because of karma. They appear in this world to fulfill a special spiritual purpose. That is why when they come into this world, even though from an external perspective it appears they are born to a mother, we do not refer to the day of their birth as a birthday. call it as appearance day. Similarly, when they leave this world, even though externally they may follow the custom of quitting this world in the way that we quit this world, we do not call their leaving as death. Again, because it is not because of karma. When they find that their purpose on the earth has come to a fulfillment and they decide by their will or based on the will of the Lord that they should now go back to where they came from, which is the spiritual world, then they leave this world, and that is why their leaving is actually called disappearance, which means they were visible to us, but now they have disappeared from our vision and they have gone back to the spiritual realm. So this applies both to the Lord as well as his pure devotees. So this particular chapter, the 14th chapter of the first canto, is related to the disappearance of Lord Krishna, of how the Lord, having completed his pastimes on the planet, went back to the spiritual world of Goloka. Now, amongst the various pastimes of the Lord, his devotees love to discuss all pastimes, but they are not very fond of this particular pastime. Why are they not so fond of this particular pastime? Because the disappearance pastimes of the Lord are actually very painful for the devotees. The devotees are always looking forward. We celebrate Krishna's appearance, Janmashtami, we celebrate. Ram Navami, we celebrate. Narasingha Chaturdashi, we celebrate. But have you seen any festival for disappearance of Lord Krishna? It is very painful for the devotees when the Lord winds up his pastimes on the planet and goes back to the spiritual world. But mind you, as far as disappearance of the devotees, the pure devotees of the Lord, the acharyas is concerned, that is observed as a glorious occasion, because that itself is a great source of inspiration for those who are left behind, of how a perfected soul departs from this world and attains the absolute transcendental realm. So those days are observed. Of course, the feeling of separation, the feeling of pain is still there, but they are still observed. But usually, as far as the disappearance of the Lord is concerned and those pastimes are concerned, the devotees do not particularly are not particularly keen to discuss. They prefer to discuss the Lord's appearance and his various other pastimes. Nonetheless, even though personally also I do not enjoy discussing this pastime, nonetheless, this is part of the 14th chapter. So we will do this. Of course, the Lord's appearance and disappearance are both spiritual. There's nothing material about it. Janma karma cha me divyam, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Evam veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti swarjuna. He who understands factually the Lord's appearance, activities, and disappearance. Factually means they understand that it is not material, it is not based on karma, it is not based on the three modes. They understand that it is the arrangement of the divine energy, the spiritual energy, yoga maya samavritam. Such souls attain the spiritual world of the Lord simply by understanding the spiritual nature of the Lord's appearance and disappearance. One can attain the spiritual destination. This is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So it is not an ordinary or a cheap thing to understand the Lord's disappearance pastime also. And especially the disappearance pastime of Lord Krishna is actually very challenging to understand. And we will discuss that shortly. It's very challenging to understand, and the Lord deliberately does it in such a way so as to create a very special spice in his disappearance. We'll discuss a bit more about that when we come to the pastime. Now, this particular chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad is actually, in terms of the story or the plot, is a very, very brief chapter. It has 30-40 verses, but the chapter is very brief because as far as the story is concerned, the whole discussion is actually very simple and brief. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to discuss briefly what the verses cover, and there are around 44 verses in this chapter, and then I'm going to go to the pastime of the Lord's disappearance, because that is not described in detail in the first canto itself. So I will come to that shortly. The disappearance pastime of the Lord is described in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad in chapter number 30. So if you want to refer in detail, you can look that up. This chapter is actually describing what happens in Hastinapur and how Yudhishthir Maharaj comes to the point of getting the news of the disappearance of Lord Krishna. So the chapter begins with Suta Goswami describing, as we have been speaking, Suta Goswami is narrating to the sages headed by Shaunaka and others. He is narrating that what has happened is that roughly around, if I'm not wrong, 35-36 years had passed after the battle of Kurukshetra, roughly. We discussed in the previous chapters, Lord Krishna was in Hastinapur for some time after the battle, then Bhishma disappeared, then the Lord went, and then Dhritarashtra went, and Vidura went, and others. The Pandavas were still continuing to rule the empire. Parikshit was born, Parikshit was growing slowly. But the Pandavas were still continuing to rule because the Lord was still on the planet. And that is why they felt that as long as the Lord is there, we should also remain on the planet. At one point in time, Yudhishthir Maharaj, because it so happened that Narada Muni had come to Hastinapur and given a hint to Yudhishthir Maharaj, the Lord Krishna may leave the planet very soon. Yudhishthir Maharaj sent Arjuna, who was his younger brother and a very, very dear friend of Lord Krishna, to go to Dwarka and find out about the well-being of the Yadus. So Arjuna had already departed. A few months had passed. No news about the Yadus had come because Arjuna had not come back. Yudhishthir had started to get worried. And this scene, which this chapter describes, is where Yudhishthir Maharaj is speaking to his other younger brother Bhima. And he starts telling Bhima that, oh, Bhima, I'm actually worried. So many months have passed. Actually, 7 months have passed. And Arjuna has not come. This is one cause of concern. Parallelly, O Bhima, there is another cause of concern. And that cause of concern is, I am seeing so many inauspicious omens in the kingdom. And this is causing me great worry. I am seeing that the amount of quarrel, the amount of cheating, fighting is increased. People are showing symptoms of being more greedy, more angry, more deceitful. In fact, people have started to adopt improper means of livelihood. This is very strange. This has not been happening. Our kingdom has been so noteworthy because of the purity of the following of dharma. And have you also noticed, Bhima? I am noticing that even there are other omens in nature which are indicating something is not right. In fact, they are considered inauspicious according to the science of omens. There are seasonal irregularities. What does seasonal irregularities mean? That when it is not rainy season, it rains. When it is rainy season, it doesn't rain. In summer season, suddenly there is a bout of cold weather. Or in cold season, it still continues to be hot. These are all various anomalies in seasonal behavior, and these are considered as bad omens. That something inauspicious is happening or is about to happen. And Maharaj Yudhishthira is noting all of this, and he is narrating all this because he is surprised, because he knows that when Lord Krishna is on earth, because of the presence of the extraordinary power of the Lord, the earth is showing the kind of dharma which is and prosperity which is higher than normal. How come suddenly all these things are happening? Is it? Yudhishthira starts asking, is it that Lord Krishna has already left the planet? Oh, Bhima, could it be like that? Narada Muni had predicted. Could it be that it has actually happened? This is very worrisome. Otherwise, how could all these inauspicious omens come? And how can adharma start coming up? There's another very interesting point, though it's not mentioned in this chapter, it's mentioned in another chapter, is that as long as Lord Krishna was personally present on the planet, Kali Yuga was unable to begin. The scripture said technically Kali Yuga was supposed to start at the time of the end of the Mahabharata war, around that time. But it is said Kali Yuga, Dwapar had ended, and Kali Yuga, of course, when Kali Yuga starts, there is first a Yuga Sandhya period. And we are even now in the Yuga Sandhya period. But Kali Yuga, the personification of Kali Yuga, Kali, wanted to come to earth and start his influence, but he was unable to do so because Lord Krishna was personally present on the planet. Kali could not bring his influence. So when Maharaj Yudhishthira noted that the symptoms of Kali, because what are the symptoms of Kali? Quarrel, hypocrisy, cheating, disturbance. These are all symptoms of Kali. Maharaj Yudhishthira was saying, I can see husband and wife are always quarreling and disturbed. Brothers are fighting amongst each other. Parents are fighting with children. This is very unusual. Dwapara, this doesn't happen. How come I am seeing all these symptoms? And actually describes many symptoms. I'm not going to go through all the list. You can read the chapter. But he goes through many symptoms. Some of them which are concerned with what he sees in the skies and in nature. Some of them are concerned with what he sees in the birds and the animals surrounding him. So this is how actually nature talks. Actually, nature is also living. And nature also gives various signs to indicate. Does it happen today also? Yes, it happens today also. But sometimes we are not sensitive enough to notice. And that is the problem of being in city, because there is so much disturbance. We fail sometimes to note the finer signs that nature shows us. And this itself is a huge science, the science of omens. As he was speaking like this, and as he was suspecting that there must be some greater loss to the good fortune of this world, that all these symptoms are coming, it is as suddenly at that time Arjuna came back. This conversation was going on, and Arjuna came back. Arjuna came in front of Maharaj Yudhishthir, his hands folded. Maharaj Yudhishthir observed that Arjuna seemed terribly dejected. His head was down, tears were rolling down his cheeks. And as soon as Yudhishthir Maharaj saw Arjuna like this, he became very worried. He already started suspecting, if Arjuna is so overwhelmed and dejected, must be that the worst has happened. Like what Narada Muni has suggested. So he started asking Arjun, but he didn't ask him the question very directly. He started asking, please tell me, Arjun, you went to Dwarka to find about the well-being of the Yadu. So what is the news? All these races, the Madhus, the Bhojas, the Dasharha, Arha, Satvata, Andhaka, and others, are they all happy? Is grandfather Surasena happy? How is Vasudev and his brothers? How are the 7 wives of Vasudev headed by Devaki? Are all their family happy? How is Ugrasen, the father of Kamsa? And he goes on describing so many names. He asks about Pradyumna. He asks about the other sons of Krishna, Sushena, Charudeshna, Samba, who's the son of Jambavati. He asks about Rishabha. He asks about Uddhav, Nanda, Sunanda, and all these associates. And finally, as he's describing the associates, he's glorifying them and glorifying the good fortune of the wives of Krishna, who achieved such great fortune that Krishna was so affectionate to them. Be it Satyabhama, Rukmini, extraordinary good fortune they had. The mention is given of Satyabhama that just to please Satyabhama, Lord Krishna went to Indraloka and asked Indra for the Parijata tree. So that Parijata tree, which was the pride of Indra, was brought down by Krishna and planted in Dwarka. Where? In the palace of Satyabhama, just to please her. That is how much affection was there between the Lord and his consorts. So Yudhishthira was remembering all this and how fortunate Dwarka was with the Sudharma assembly and all these auspiciousness. He's asking, is everything well? Is all going on fine? Oh, Arjun, tell me what happened to you? Why is your bodily luster disappeared? So now he's asking Arjun, please tell me. All throughout, Arjuna is very quiet. He has his head low, he's feeling very dejected, and he's not speaking anything. And Yudhishthir continues to probe him. So then Yudhishthir, seeing his silence, is asking, or is it, Arjun, that you're not in good health? That is why your bodily luster is lost? Or is it because you have done something which is not proper according to the principles of dharma that you have lost your bodily luster? It's a very interesting statement which Yudhishthir makes, because bodily luster can be lost because of this, sometimes because of health. A person who's of high spiritual character, if he loses his bodily luster, that means he's either not following his spiritual duties properly, or he has committed some kind of offenses or improper adharmic behavior. Or one more reason possible is he has been so deeply insulted that he's feeling so dejected that his bodily luster is gone. So Yudhishthira Maharaj starts asking Arjun, is it because of this? Has somebody actually insulted you? Have you been defeated by somebody who's lower than you, and that is why you're so dejected, that your honor has been impacted? Has somebody threatened you or insulted you with unkind words? Or is it that somebody asked you for shelter, for help, but you couldn't provide? You couldn't do your dharma. That is why you're so dejected. Because you've always been protecting brahmanas, cows, women, and all those who are taking shelter. Is it that you failed to give shelter to somebody you asked, or you failed to give charity to somebody you asked? Or is it that there were some old men or young children who needed your help and you failed to help? Or is it that you were eating your meal and there was some hungry person and you failed to feed him? That's very interesting things that Yudhishthira Maharaj mentions. So he mentions a lot of these points, and when you analyze these points, it gives a very beautiful insight, because it gives insight into the principles of dharma. And one of the interesting things I found was, he said, is it that when you're eating, somebody was there who was hungry and you didn't feed him? So Vedic culture is so very sensitive. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It talks about the whole world as a family. The Lord in the Bhagavad Gita says that he who is advanced in spiritual knowledge sees all living entities and as part and parcels of me. And he is Sarva Bhuta Hiterata. A person who is truly saintly, he sees the Lord present in everyone's heart, and that is why he's kind and compassionate to everybody. And if it is within his power to help somebody who's in need, he does. And especially for those who are Grahasthas, and especially more for those who are Kshatriyas. If somebody is in need and somebody is in difficulty, it is their duty to help. And not doing so is culpable. Culpable means punishable. So is it something like this has happened? You are so busy eating that there was some hungry person next to you and you failed to feed him? Or maybe have you been in touch or in contact with some lady of low character? Is that the cause of your losing of luster? Or after seeing all these things, actually finally when he sees Arjuna is still quiet, finally Yudhishthira Maharaj takes the courage of asking the question directly. He wanted to ask the question directly in the first place, but he was waiting for Arjuna to speak. But he was trying to eliminate all other reasons. So he asked about Arjuna's health. He asked about whether Arjuna was insulted. He asked whether Arjuna failed to follow the principles of religion. And finally, when Arjuna did not respond to any of these questions, fearfully Yudhishthira Maharaj asked, is it, Arjuna, that you're feeling so empty because you have lost your most dear and intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Arjuna, I cannot think of any other reason which can cause you to be dejected like this. So this particular chapter, chapter 14, ends with this particular question by Yudhishthira Maharaj to Arjun. And after having asked this question, in the next chapter, which is chapter 15, is when Arjuna starts answering and revealing what has happened. So that we will discuss in the next chapter. So what I intend to do today is, we have spent around roughly half an hour discussing the contents of the chapter, especially in terms of the verses. But what I want to do now is spend another 15 odd minutes to describe the disappearance of Lord Krishna, which has happened behind the scenes, which Arjuna has found out and he has come back, but is not described explicitly in this particular chapter. And then we will take some questions. I hope that is okay. Yeah. So I will take probably another 15 minutes and then we will open it up. So Krishna's appearance again and disappearance are both very special. Krishna engineers his appearance and also engineers his disappearance. And whatever the Lord does serves many, many, many purposes. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So the Lord, after he had come to establish religion, give the Bhagavad Gita, establish Yudhishthira, all these things were done. Practically all the purposes of the Lord were served. the Lord decided that it was now time for him to wind up his pastimes. And when the Lord comes, along with the Lord, his various associates also come. So the Lord, when the Lord disappears, some of his associates disappear before him, some of his associates disappear after him, but the Lord winds up. Just like after a drama is over, the whole drama troupe, the whole stage, everything is wound up. And it appears as if nothing was here. So the Lord does like that. The Lord is eternal, his form is eternal. The Lord appears like an actor, performs his act, disappears and goes elsewhere. In fact, the scriptures say that the Lord goes from universe to universe to universe and displays his pastime. In fact, somewhere in some universe at this moment, the Lord is performing his pastimes. You may not know which, but the Lord is. The Shastras give the example just like the sun. The sun may have set now in Kuala Lumpur, and the sun may just about be setting in India. But if you go further westward, if you go to Dubai, it is still late afternoon. If you go to Europe, it is probably noon time. People are having their lunch. You can see the sun clearly up. So has the sun really set? No. In KL, the sun has just moved out of our appearance. We can't see it. The sun is still very much there. It's just become invisible to us. Similarly, the scriptures say that just like the sun is always there, it is just our relative position that we are unable to see the sun. Similarly, the Lord is always there, performing his leelas in some part, in some universe, somewhere. It's just that he sometimes becomes visible to us for some time and then disappears from our vision. But the Lord doesn't go through birth and death like us, even though externally in a leela, he may make it appear like that. This is very important for us to remember. And the Lord does his activities in various mysterious ways, and sometimes they're very difficult for us to understand. So I'm going to go through some pastimes. Most of these pastimes are described in detail in the Mahabharata. There is a particular Leela known as the Mausala Leela, which is described in the Mausala Parva, which I will now describe. And some of the pastime, especially the specific pastime of the Lord's disappearance, is described both in the Mahabharata and also in the Bhagavad, as I mentioned, 11th canto, 30th chapter. I'm going to describe a bit about that. And then that will give you a high level. Again, like what I mentioned, it is painful to discuss this, but nonetheless, it is purifying nonetheless for devotees. And it is good for us to know because, those who are atheists and materialistic people, they enjoy this pastime. They are not interested in all other pastimes. Oh, Krishna got killed by an arrow. Yes, they're very excited. That means he's not God. That's the excitement that the atheists give. And Krishna also loves to give them that kind of an excitement. So Krishna does these kind of leelas to tease the atheistic people. Devotees are not bewildered by these kind of pastimes. Okay, so let us discuss and understand so that we understand what the story is and we understand why the Lord did what why the Lord did what he did. To some extent, of course, we cannot fully understand the Lord's heart and the internal reasons completely, but at least we can understand to the extent that the scriptures and the sadhus have revealed. So we'll discuss this briefly. So I'll give some background story. So one part is that the Lord, when he was on the earth with the Yadus were extraordinarily powerful. Extraordinarily powerful. In fact, the Bhagavad describes they were almost as powerful as him. Because that is the nature of the associates of the Lord. They are from the spiritual world. They have come down. They are extraordinarily powerful. And the Lord wanted that when he departs from the world, his associates should also depart. Because otherwise they'll become like a burden on the earth. The Lord is not here, but then there are, thousands and thousands and millions of his associates who are on the earth. And the second thing is why the Lord even needs the associates to be here when he has already wound up his pastimes. So the Lord wanted to orchestrate a leela for the disappearance of his associates so that his associates can go back to the spiritual world. So what happened is in Dwaraka, at one point in time, when a lot of inauspicious omens started appearing, Lord Krishna told the Yadus that a lot of inauspicious signs are coming. So my suggestion is, let us all go to Prabhasa Kshetra and perform there certain rituals, yajnas, etc., so that we can overcome the inauspicious omens and everything auspicious will happen. The Yadus were always very, very obedient to the Lord, being very affectionate. They said, yes, my Lord, whatever you say is fine. Let us go. So all the able-bodied men got into boats from Dwarka, because Dwarka is in the ocean. And they went to the bank, and then on chariots, they started moving towards Prabhasa, which is along the seashore. Prabhas is also along the banks of the Saraswati river, and it's also along the sea. So when they reached there and they were performing various rituals, it so happened that at one point in time, by the will of the Lord, all these Yadus, they were drinking a very sweet beverage, which is known as the Mairei beverage. And this beverage, when you have it excessively, it creates an intoxicating effect. They were not drinking whiskey or vodka or beer. The name Mairei beverage is mentioned. I do not know the recipe for Mairei in case you are interested, but I suggest you don't drink it. Because the Bhagavad describes, because of excessive consumption of Mairei, the Yadus became intoxicated. And it is said they became so intoxicated that they couldn't even identify each other. They forgot who each other are. You remember in the Wednesday class, I was mentioning about intoxication. Living entities in this material world are already intoxicated. And when a person takes intoxication or things which lead to intoxication, intoxication being in the mode of ignorance clouds one's understanding and knowledge, and one loses sense of what is what. That is what happened to the Yadus. They practically lost sense of who others are, and from some small petty issues they started quarreling, and from some initial verbal spat it led to arguments, and from arguments it led to pushing, push led to shove, and eventually they started literally fighting each other, forgetting who they are. And soon enough they started taking weapons in their hands and fighting with each other with weapons. This went to the point of the Yadus starting to kill each other with weapons, with bows, with swords, with maces, with bows and arrows. They were slaughtering each other. Sometimes brothers were killing brothers. Friends were killing friends. It was a very ghastly scene. Very sad, very shocking. The Lord was observing this with great calmness. Why? Because the Lord knew what is happening. In fact, he had engineered all this because he was using this as a leela to withdraw the Yadus. Because the Yadus could not be withdrawn in any other way. Nobody could defeat the Yadus. So they had to be defeated by each other. Because no external force could defeat them. And he wanted to withdraw because the Lord wanted to leave, and the Lord did not want to leave, leaving the Yadus behind. The Lord wanted to make sure he wrapped up the stage and all the actors before he himself moved away from the place. And it so happened after they ran out of weapons, that Prabhasa Kshetra along the ocean, there was this huge grass, which is described as a type of cane. They started picking those cane up and started fighting with each other using that cane. It is said as soon as they would pluck that cane, it would turn into like an iron rod. like a mace, and they would start fighting with each other and killing each other with that. Now, there's an interesting story behind this cane. So I want to take this opportunity to mention this. The story is mentioned in the Mahabharata. So the story goes something like this. This story again happened after the Mahabharata war. Everything was wonderful. At one time, some great sages, I believe it was the Saptarshis and others along with Narada, they were visiting Dwarka to meet the Lord. As they were approaching Dwarka and approaching to meet the Lord, they came across some sons of Lord Krishna headed by Samba. Samba was there, and some of the friends of Samba were there. For those of you who do not know who is Samba, Samba is the son of Satyavati, Jambavati. Apologies. Jambavati is one of the 8 primary wives of Lord Krishna, and she is the daughter of Jambavan, who participated in the Ramayana Leela, fought against Ravana in the battle of Lanka. So his daughter Jambavati was married. So that's a beautiful another pastime. So the son of Jambavati and Krishna named Samba, it is said he became a bit arrogant and proud, and when these great sages came, in a mood of making fun, what he did was he pretended, he kept one mace, a huge mace around the region of his belly, covered it with a cloth, dressed up like a woman, and went in front of the sages and asked the sages, pretending to be a pregnant woman, asked the sages, please tell me, oh great sages, you are all knowing, please tell me, will I give birth to a son or will I give birth to a daughter? So he was making fun. One should never make fun of great souls. See, this is what happens when a person becomes proud. He loses his sense of discrimination. When one loses a sense of discrimination, one forgets the sense of maryada. Maryada means the lines of proper behavior, the lines of proper etiquette. One transgresses them and commits offenses. So some of the sages, because they were all knowing, they were greatly advanced souls, they could see through the deceit of Samba. And because they saw that Samba was being disrespectful and proud, they actually cursed him. They angrily cursed him, saying that, "O lady, neither will there be a son or a daughter, but a mace will be born from you. And that mace will be the cause of the destruction of all the Yadus." And they uttered this curse, which was quite strange. Again, this curse was the arrangement of the Lord. And as soon as this happened, the Lord came on the scene. The sages were repenting. They're saying, "Oh, what did we say? But now we cannot take this curse back. We have cursed like this. What to do?" Lord Krishna suggested to Samba and the others, "Oh, now this terrible curse has come. Let us go and all ask Ugrasen, what should we do?" Or was it Shurasen? I'm not sure. So they went and asked. And then, I think it was Shurasen. He said, this mace, which has been born from Samba because he was hiding this mace, is going to be the cause of the destruction. So let us do this one thing. Let us totally destroy the mace so that the mace cannot destroy us. So they powdered the whole mace, the small fine powder, except for one small piece which they were unable to powder. And after having powdered it, they took that powder along with that piece and dumped it into the ocean. The scriptures say that that powder was swept across the ocean onto the beach at Prabhasa, and from that powder, this grass came up, this huge cane came up, which is what the Yadus used to fight with each other and kill each other. So actually the curse came true. So this is what, when something is inevitable, no matter how hard we try, the situation will find, destiny will find its way and come and hit us. There was that one piece of that mace which was not able to be powdered. That piece was eaten by a fish. that fish was hunted by a particular hunter, and when he cut open the fish, he found that piece, and then that piece, because it was sharp and shaped like an arrowhead, was used by this hunter of the name Jara to make an arrow. Now let us go back to the scene where the Yadus are killing each other. This is the background story. So the grass, which is in the form of a cane, was used by the Yadus. Practically everybody was killed. There was only one person who was not there amongst those who were the primary male members. Of course, the elderly people like Vasudeva and others were still in Dwarka. They had not come there. Most of the warriors and the others had come. Uddhava was directly instructed by the Lord, even before this happened, to go to Badrikashram. He was given another duty to go to Badrikashram and give the association, devotional association to the sages who are in Badrikashram on behalf of the Lord, because the sages in Badrikashram wanted association of Krishna. So Krishna sent his dearmost devotee. So association of those who are dear to the Lord is like associating with the Lord. That's a very special, sweet spiritual principle. One feels intimate connection with the Lord when one associates with those who are intimate with the Lord. It's a very sweet principle. Anyway, so Uddhav was not there. He had already gone. And the Uddhav knew that the Lord is going to disappear. And that is when the Lord told Uddhav, you must go. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to wind up my pastimes very soon. You go, you do this. You don't stay here. In fact, Uddhav did not want to see the disappearance. He said, oh Lord, it's going to be too painful. So he sent him on this duty. So Uddhav was not there. All others practically killed each other. Then Balram and Krishna quietly walked away. Balramji went into the forest, went near the shore of the ocean. It is said he sat in meditation on Lord Krishna. Balram is the first expansion of Krishna. And then he merged himself into himself and he disappeared. In fact, some scriptures describe that it is said from the mouth of Balram came a huge snake of Ananta and he moved into the ocean. There is some description given like that. Lord Krishna peacefully saw all this, very sober. The Lord, of course, because everything is happening by His will, He's not excited or disturbed by any of this. He very quietly knowing, okay, I have taken care of the Yadus. I have sent the Yadus back to the spiritual world. My elder brother Balram has gone. Uddhav I have sent for his work. Now it is time for me to wrap up my pastimes. So Lord Krishna went and sat under a peepal tree. Peepal is considered a very auspicious tree. Sat under the peepal tree, putting his left foot on top of his right thigh. And it is said, as he was sitting under the tree, that left foot was visible from behind the tree, through the bushes and the branches. And there was this hunter by the name Jara, who saw from a distance the foot of the Lord, the sole of the foot of the Lord, and thinking it to be the face of a deer, he took an arrow. He took that arrow which had the piece of the mace that he had got, and he shot. He shot the foot of the Lord, and then when he came there, he thought that he had already pierced the deer and killed the deer, so he came running there. And when he came running there, he saw that Lord Krishna was sitting there. And he was shocked. He was overwhelmed at what mistake he had done. He was so scared and worried, he started falling at Lord Krishna's feet and begging for forgiveness. Oh Lord, unknowingly I have offended you. He knew about the Lord's greatness. He knew who Krishna was. He fell at the Lord's feet and begging for forgiveness. Oh Lord, I didn't know I accidentally did this. Now, some people say that this arrow pierced Krishna's body and killed it. Some people describe like that, but that is not true. The Acharyas explain that when this arrow actually hit Krishna's lotus feet, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the great Acharya, explains that the arrow actually just touched the foot of Krishna and fell down. It didn't even cause a scratch. But the Lord took that as an excuse to wind up his pastime. So when Jara, this hunter, came there, rushed, and was falling at the feet of the Lord, it is said, Lord Krishna manifested a four-armed form like Narayan in front of Jara. And as Jara was crying, Krishna was consoling him. Normally, if we shoot somebody accidentally, we will be, consoling, oh, you are hurt. Now Krishna is consoling Jara. No, it's okay, don't worry. It's all happening by my will only. You don't have to bother. You have not made any mistakes. You are actually my great devotee. I just used you to perform this pastime because I want to bewilder the materialistic people who think that I'm ordinary and material. I want to bewilder them by this pastime. So I'm doing this pastime. So you don't get bewildered. I'm spiritual and nothing happens to me. I want to leave the world and it is time for me to wind up my manifest pastime. So that is why I'm doing this. I want you. You have also completed your service in this world and you are a pure devotee of mine. I want you to go to Vaikuntha now. The Lord ordered Jara to go to the spiritual world. And it is said a Vaikuntha Viman came and Jara sat on it and he went back to the spiritual world. Amazing, isn't it? So it is not that he was, it's all the arrangement of the Lord. Lord asked Jara to go. After Jara had departed, Daruka, the charioteer of Krishna, who, all these battlefields, so many things had happened, he came looking for the Lord. Finally, he found the Lord sitting under the tree. And realizing that the Lord is about to disappear, he became overwhelmed. Daruka. Daruka is also an eternal associate of the Lord. And he saw that everybody has departed. Balram has gone, the Yadus have gone, Krishna is about to leave. He fell at Krishna's feet. He said, "Oh, Master, why are you doing this? It is so painful." Lord affectionately also instructed Daruka. He said, "Daruka, you are my eternal associate. You should also not be bewildered. So I'm going to disappear very soon. But before I disappear, I have some seva for you. But before that, I want to dispatch my chariot and all my weapons to the spiritual world." So as Daruka was standing there, Krishna's chariot suddenly started floating up in the sky. And Krishna's four weapons from the four hands manifested as four personalities, the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, and they went into the chariot. And the chariot went straight to the spiritual world in front of Daruka. And the charioteer was not taken. The charioteer remained there. And the chariot went and the weapons went. And Krishna told Daruka, "Daruka, I sent all of them back, but I didn't send you because I have still some seva for you to do. Of course, you are my pure devotee, you will also go. But before you go, just like I gave a seva to Uddhav, you are also my very dear confidential associate. I have a seva for you. And what is that seva? I am just about to leave. After I depart to the spiritual world and after I wounded up my pastimes, I want you to go back to Dwarka because somebody has to go back to Dwarka and give the news. You go back to Dwarka and give the news of what all has happened, that all the Yadus have left. And what has happened to me and Lord Balram, you inform that to the residents of Dwarka and also inform to Arjuna and ensure that Arjuna arranges those who are remaining in Dwarka to be taken to Indraprastha. And when you take them to Indraprastha, my great grandson Vajra should be installed as the king, and all the residents of Dwarka should move from Dwarka to Indraprastha and settle there. Why they should leave Dwarka? Because Dwarka is remaining above the sea only because of my presence. now that I'm departing, Dwarka will be sunk under the ocean. Before it sinks, make sure it is vacated. So this service I want you to do, because WhatsApp has not yet come. It is going to come in Kali Yuga, so you have to do this seva. Otherwise, on the Yadu dynasty WhatsApp group, Krishna would have put, I'm disappearing, please go to Indraprastha. There was still a more conventional method. The Lord engages his devotees in seva. This bringing of messages is also very intimate seva. And the Lord gives this, sometimes we think postman is a very, ordinary job. But when it's about carrying the message of the Lord and giving it to his devotees, it's a very, very special service. The Lord gives this kind of service to his topmost devotees, like Uddhava, Daruka, and others. It's not an ordinary seva. So Uddhava took one message and went to the great sages in Badrikashram. Daruka took this other message. Then it is said, knowing that it was time for the Lord to disappear, all the devatas headed by Brahma, Shiva, and all the other devatas gathered in the sky, they started showering flowers, anticipating this very rare event of the disappearance of Lord Krishna. And this is not just another incarnation, this is Swayam Bhagwan, who appears once in a day of Brahma. In the 8th Manvantara, 28th Chaturyuga of Vaivasvat Manvantar, once in a day of Brahma, he appears. All of them were very eagerly trying to witness this event. Lord Krishna's body is actually fully spiritual, but Lord Krishna used his Maya Shakti. And what he did, he left a material body resembling his external body behind. And he himself, invisible to anybody else, ascended to the spiritual world of Goloka. The Bhagavad describes in the 11th canto, it says, even the devatas could not figure out how the Lord disappeared and what were his movements as he ascended to the spiritual world. The devatas are so elevated that they can exactly see when a soul leaves a body and where it goes and what is happening. But here they couldn't figure out anything, because the Lord's mystic potency is such that even the devatas cannot figure out. Only Brahma and Shiva to some extent could understand that the Lord has left a material body behind and he went. That also they couldn't fully clearly understand how it happened. But the Lord ascended to the spiritual world, leaving a material body behind, and he left a material body behind, which was an aspect of his Vishwaroop, so to say, because it's a material manifestation of the material elements. He left that behind, and then he ascended to the spiritual world of Goloka. Then the news was taken by Daruka, and then it was taken, and then the respective, all the other events happened, which led to Arjuna being informed, and then Arjuna bringing the residents to Indraprastha, and then Arjuna coming back to Hastinapur and coming to the point of this 14th chapter of the first canto, where he is being questioned by Yudhishthir and he is just about to narrate what has happened. Very, very painful for him, but he actually helped. Again, another very dear devotee of the Lord, Krishna arranged that Yudhishthir sends Arjun so that he will help in managing the affairs of the remaining residents of Dwarka and the wives of Krishna who were left behind after Krishna's disappearance. Again, very painful and difficult services to perform, but the Lord empowers his extraordinary devotees to do these services. Okay, so thank you. I will end here with respect to the narration of the pastime. Sorry, I couldn't complete by 9:45. I was hoping I'll complete it earlier. So I'll open for any questions for a few minutes if any of you have any questions. Thank you very much. Kantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Dr. Ashwin.
How long after did Krishna's wife leave the world after Krishna left?
Okay. If I remember correctly, I don't know about all of them, but it is said, as far as I know, I can't say this with full confidence, but I read somewhere that Rukmini ji, when Arjuna came on the scene, they arranged for the last rites of all the Yadus who were killed, and also the external material body that Lord Krishna left behind was also given a Daha Samskar, like a funeral ritual. So it is said Rukmini entered that fire. That is what I have heard. Again, I can't confirm that, but that is what I have heard. And it is said Satyabhama, she went to the Himalayas to perform austerities, and then she disappeared from there. That is what I have heard. I'm not sure about the other wives. There is some pastime with respect to the other wives, but I do not know very specifically about each individual one. But there is another story about the rest of the wives, which I will narrate in the next class because it is connected with chapter number 15. But about Rukmini and Satyabhama, this is mentioned.
Okay.
Unless somebody else, Upendra Prabhu, if you know something else about Rukmini, Satyabhama, then you can share. All right. Okay, fine. Any other question? Upendra Prabhu, you want to add something, please? No. Yeah, devotees don't like to talk about this topic. Yeah. It's painful. As I was reading also, I was not feeling good. Because the Lord devotees don't like to read about disappearance pastimes. Anyway.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes. Swatiji, is it?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Jara was so fortunate that he saw the Chaturbhuj roop of Lord Sri Krishna. So who he was in his previous birth?
There are some speculations on that, so I don't want to state. There are some speculations about it, but I haven't come across any conclusive statement on that from the great souls. So I don't want to state that. Some people speculate and say that it was Vali who came as Jara, but there is no, I haven't come across any shastrical evidence to support that perspective, so I don't want to claim. But it seems from what is described in the Bhagavad that obviously he was a very special great soul, and because the Lord actually sent him to the spiritual world. Again, we may think he was so fortunate to see that Chaturbhuj Roop, but we must understand the circumstances under which he saw that. It was actually a very difficult service. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I don't think most of us will want to be in that position, that we were chosen by the Lord to do such a difficult service of being the person to shoot that arrow which led to the disappearance of the Lord. Would you like to do that?
No.
I don't think devotees will like. So these are difficult services. These are not easy services. Correct? For all time to come, people will say, oh, this Jara was the cause. We'll curse this Jara. Because the Lord has arranged this pastime. So special thing. But Upendra Prabhu, do you know about Jara's background? Is there any clear Shastrik?
No.
All right.
No.
Okay. I'll try to check a bit more. If I find something reliable, then I will share it in the next class. If anybody else knows, they can share. But there are speculations on this, but I haven't heard any concrete. See, the thing is, whatever we say should not be just some speculative speculation by people. It should be based on either a shastric statement, or it should be based on the revelation by some great pure devotee. Then only we can rely on that particular evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But very clearly, he was a great devotee. So we do not blame him for what he did. He was sent to the spiritual world. The Bhagavad very clearly mentions that he was sent to the spiritual world by the Lord immediately after that pastime.
No, Arjuna has to go back home.
Anything else? Okay. So the key point, if there's nothing else, just concluding words. the key point to understand in this Leela, when we talk about a disappearance Leela, first is I went into all these descriptions so that you know what is the background story, so that you are not confused. And if somebody argues, because materialistic people love to talk about this, they like to kill God. Prabhupada would say they like to kill God. They like to deride God. The Lord speaks about this in the Bhagavad Gita throughout, that how they somehow try. Because the whole thinking of the demons is, if I deride and if I show that there is no God, then I am free to do whatever I want to do. And ultimately, I want to be the Lord and enjoy. So I must kill the Lord either physically, like what Hiranyakashipu wanted to do, or kill God as a concept, or deny God. And how do they do that? They will try to find some fault in the Lord and his pastimes and try to prove that the Lord, for example, Krishna, is actually an ordinary mortal. So why should I worship him? Why should I believe him? Why should I do? So they like to take this pastime often to say, see, you called him God all throughout, but see at the end, see, he was killed by an arrow. But of course, those who are sane and those who have read the scriptures know very clearly how this whole pastime manifested. And who can be killed by an arrow being shot to the feet, to the sole of the foot? It doesn't make sense anyways, even materially, logically. And in fact, the Bhagavatam says that it doesn't even describe that the Lord was pierced. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the arrow just hit the foot of the Lord and fell down. So the Lord performs these pastimes to bewilder the atheists, because the atheists do not want to surrender and worship the Lord, do not want to accept his authorities. The Lord gives them what they want, which is an excuse to not surrender. So the Lord fulfills everybody's desire. If you want to develop faith and devotion to the Lord will give you all the intelligence to do that. If you don't want to believe in him, even to not believe in him, the Lord has to help you. That much dependent we are on the Lord. The intelligence that the atheists use to deny God is also given by God. The illusion that covers up the intelligence, that makes the atheist forget God or denies existence, is also given by God. But why does God do that? Is he being cruel? No. The Lord is simply facilitating the desire of the jiva. The Lord says, Ye yathamam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham. As you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. I made this whole material world because, oh jiva, you wanted to forget me. Isn't it? We discussed in the Wednesday class this point in great detail. You wanted to forget me. So now, when I've appeared in this world, I've appeared to give pleasure to my devotees and destroy the demoniac. So those who are envious and still want to deny me, even after so much abundant proof of my pastimes, yes, let me give them one more reason to not believe in me. Because they want to forget me, I will give them one more reason to doubt my existence. So the Lord is simply facilitating the desire of the living entity. If you want to forget him, also you need God's help. How did he help? He created the material world. He created the false ego. Yes, that is why he created the material world, to help us to forget. Because if we wanted to forget him, and if we remained in the spiritual world, we cannot forget him by being in the spiritual world. How to forget him? Everybody is talking about him, everybody is loving him, everybody is worshipping him. How to forget him? It is impossible. The Lord has to create a material world to facilitate that desire. So the Lord is so kind that he facilitates even the desires of those who want to forget him. Not that he wants that, but because he has given freedom to all living entities, the choice, the free will to decide to love him or to not love him. The Lord gives facilities in both directions, and he makes both possibilities achievable by creating the right environment and giving knowledge and arguments for both sides for the intelligence, either in illusion or in knowledge, to be fixed in. So that is the amazing potency of the Lord. So please keep that in mind. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so thank you, Nimisha ji. Thank you. I've seen you have joined also. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Everybody
Prabhuji. Hare
else.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I just add something? My realization.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Prabhuji. So I was wondering, can we, this pastime just now, could it be, you said this mace would, what was it, that would destroy the Yadu dynasty, that Samba's son, mace?
The mace, the gada.
Yeah, what was it? The Gada would destroy, I missed that bit because I joined late.
No, the curse was given because he was hiding the mace and keeping it in the region of his belly and covered it with a cloth and made it appear as if he was a pregnant lady. Yeah. So the sages cursed him because the sages knew that he was not pregnant. He was actually Samba and not a pregnant lady, and it was actually a mace. When he asked the question, and Samba, who was pretending to be a pregnant lady, asked the question to the sages angrily retorted, saying that the one who will be born to you will neither be a boy nor a girl, it will be a mace, and that mace will be the cause of the destruction of all the Yadus. That was the
Okay.
curse given.
So Prabhuji, you know, the Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. In that pastime of Bhishma Dev, when he has taken this oath that he will make Krishna break his vow that he will have to take up the weapon in the battlefield, because Krishna was not going to.
Correct.
And then because Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala, just to fulfill Bhishma Dev's, who is a true devotee of the Lord, to fulfill his, to keep his pride, you know, Krishna takes the wheel, the weapon in his hand at the battlefield.
Correct.
So maybe here, to because what the sages said, I am thinking that he made this prophecy made true, that by this mace, it will be the end of, because is it Krishna's Bhakta Vatsala, he wants his devotees' word to come true. I'm just putting two and one this together.
Okay, so we should see this in two different perspectives. See, one is, first of all, the sages cursed this. It was an extraordinary kind of curse, right? I mean, normally you wouldn't expect the sages who are devotees also of the Lord to curse the whole Yadu dynasty for the mistake of Samba. So they were themselves a bit surprised that they cursed like that. But then the Lord, you know, it was the Lord's desire that that happened like that. Yes.
His arrangement.
His arrangement. And the reason was because the Lord wanted a pretext to wind up the pastimes. And in this whole process, he was actually affectionate to his devotees. Why? Because the Lord did not want to wind up and go before and then leave the Yadus behind. That would have been more painful for the Yadus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes,
what did Haridas Thakur pray to Lord Chaitanya? He said, "Oh Lord, I don't want to see your disappearance, Leela. I want to go first. It is intolerable for me that I am left behind and you go." So we could probably see it in that light, that the Lord, you know, of course, externally wanted to send all his associates back. He didn't want a burden on the earth of his associates behind without him. And, you know, he didn't want to show his disappearance pastime to his confidential associates. So he wound this up. So that was an excuse. And they all went back before. And then the Lord followed soon behind. So the Lord could have achieved this in many ways. But why does the Lord achieve it in this particular way? Of course, we may not know all the reasons, but externally it seems that the Lord also wanted to establish certain principles, that how much one should be careful of how one treats the great souls. See, at an external level, Samba did something wrong. At an external level, the Yadus did something wrong, isn't it? Okay, because they got intoxicated, they started fighting. So there is an external lesson also from that, and that is also a lesson for all living entities to learn, that no matter how powerful you are, even if you are closely connected with the Lord or his great devotees, if you are not careful, if you become proud, if you become intoxicated, you can do the worst of worst things. That's at an external level. Of course, they are not influenced by false ego. They are acting at a higher level based on the Lord's directions. But at an external level, for ordinary living entities, that is the lesson. You may be close to the Supreme Lord, but if you're not careful about your sadhana, you're not careful about your behavior with devotees, you can fall down and become implicated in hugely criminal activities. and how one small mistake can cause such great damage, like what Samba did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are some of the lessons. So the Lord did it in this particular way, to convey all these various lessons and also to eventually achieve his desire of winding up the pastimes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, just one question. Was it Gandhari's curse as well? Wasn't it to Yadu dynasty that it would be all
Correct,
destroyed?
correct. Yeah. So Gandhari had also cursed the Lord. When the Lord went in front of Gandhari after the Mahabharat war, Gandhari told Krishna, "Oh Krishna, you could have stopped all of this, but you did not stop. So I curse you that just like all the Kurus have been destroyed, even the Yaduvansh will be destroyed likewise." Of course, Krishna just smiled because he knew that he could use this as an excuse also to fulfill his own desire. So the Lord used that as an excuse also. But since you are mentioning this point, I just want to make one comment. Actually, was it right for Gandhari to say like that? It wasn't.
No,
It wasn't. Correct. Her curse, even though in one sense it fitted into Krishna's plan and Krishna allowed it, okay, because it fitted into his plan. Gandhari's curse was inappropriate.
Yes.
Why was it inappropriate? Because she simply shifted blame to Krishna.
Correct. She should have accepted blame at that point for her
She
sons.
should have accepted
rather.
blame. She and her husband were the cause of this problem. She not directly. Of course, she may have tried, but her husband was the root cause of this problem. If he had put his foot down and told Duryodhan, "Get lost," that's what Vidur told Dhritarashtra. You just abandon your son and kick him out of the kingdom. Otherwise, the whole Kuru dynasty will be ruined. But the husband and wife were so attached to their children that they couldn't rise to the reason and the arguments that were made by all the elders and even by Krishna himself. And why blame Krishna? Krishna said, "At least give 5 villages. I will make sure the war doesn't happen." Nobody listened. Yes. But then, see, this is the nature of the conditioned living entity. When we are so attached,
yes.
Of course, Gandhari is a very great soul, so no criticism to her. But see, even great souls who are otherwise very elevated in various ways, when material attachment, when attachment to family, to children, those things comes, sometimes the discrimination doesn't work properly. This is also another lesson for us to learn. Unless one is a thoroughly pure devotee of the Lord, who always keeps Krishna's interest first, other spiritualists sometimes get bewildered by the Lord's Maya energy. And even though they may be great and elevated in various other ways, in their austerities, in their determination, in their pursuit of following some principles of dharma, they sometimes are unable to uphold dharma all throughout. So she actually, it wasn't an appropriate thing. See, we cannot just, this is the conditioned soul's mentality, right? Blame Krishna. Oh, Krishna, you would have stopped it. Why you didn't stop?
Yes.
It's not right.
Correct? Thank you, Prabhuji, for a very good clarification there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. These practical lessons very useful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, one question from Rahul. This is not about today's topic, but he's
what
asking,
is the question?
All the souls in the universe, is there any time to reach Krishna so that this material world will be empty without him?
Okay. You're worried that material world will be empty?
No. He wants everybody.
No, I'm just joking. So this question was asked many times. Prabhupada was also asked this question many times. The answer is, if it was going to be empty, then it would have already been empty, because there have already been unlimited creations already. But the number of souls are actually so unlimited that practical situation will never happen. That's how Prabhupada would answer it. But anyway, let's say theoretically, okay, even though based on all the explanation by the acharyas, that is not a practical reality that will happen. But if that were to happen, sometime. That's fine, right? What is the problem? Some
Yeah.
people are so worried what will happen to the material world. It is like saying, oh, if nobody performs crime and the prisons become empty, oh, such a big disaster. Prisons are empty. Let us go in the, fight it in the parliament. Let us now create criminals so that the prisons become full. Is that a sane argument? So if that at all happens, we should be happy. The material world was created by the Lord just to facilitate the desire of the rebellious jivas. If there are no rebellious jivas, we should be happy, right? It's not a reason to complain. Yeah. But at a practical level, at least that's what the sadhus and the great souls say, that this is unlikely to happen. There will always be rebellious souls.
Oh.
There are so many unlimited ones. So that is why we should consider ourselves so fortunate that the scriptures say those who have come to the point of accepting spiritual knowledge under the guidance of knowledge in a parampara. Sorry, I think it's echoing. Yeah, I'm just putting you on mute, otherwise it's echoing. Yeah. So those who are fortunate enough to be connected to the devotees and who are receiving knowledge in parampara are actually so fortunate that they have come very close to escaping from the material world. So all of you here, there are around 30 of us here. The fact that you are listening to this with faith means your time to leave has come almost there. Almost there. Please don't be scared. I'm not saying you're going to die soon. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this means that our escape from the material world is very soon. What does that very soon mean? It can be this life, up to you. It can be one more life. It can be 5 more lives, 10. Doesn't matter. What is 5 lives, 10 lives more? Nothing. We have spent unlimited lifetimes in the material world. So we are very close. How close depends on you now. Or you meaning depends on us. We are each responsible for ourselves. Okay, so I hope I've answered Rahul's question. Of course, I know he's not asking from that perspective, but nonetheless, I took the liberty of answering. So yes, there are unlimited living entities in the material world and there are unlimited living entities in the spiritual world. So the emptiness in the material world is unlikely to happen.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So if there's nothing else, we will end. So thank you all very much, and I will see you on Wednesday, where we will continue our discussion on the series of why bad things happen to good people. So I'll see you on Wednesday. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai.